Hey everyone, my name is Gabe Gurwin. I'm joined today by Tristan Ettleman, and this is the
Hello.
first episode of Thinking Man Games. Now, we decided to do this channel to bring something, I guess, a little bit different. And you might be able to hear my dog barking.
Yeah.
To bring something a little bit different to the YouTube gaming space, I guess. Hence the title. We did something I noticed, especially this year's E3, was there were quite a few LPers and those type of YouTube commentators who were there, kind of acting as journalists. And while they're kind of good for what they are as being entertainers, I thought it's still very important to have like actual journalists with a journalism background or an English background, something related to that, to give insight or perspective to gaming news or gaming issues or topics, that sort of thing.
Plus, we
Um,
just like to be pretentious.
oh yeah, of course. No, but it's kind of it's funny because when people talk about like serious games journalism, it's kind of a touchy thing, and I do think there can be um, some sites that can be too pretentious, but at the same time, there has to be, I think, a happy medium.
Oh,
And
definitely.
the hope is that we're able to,
To reach that
yeah,
happy
to
medium.
reach that for sure.
Yeah.
Now, because this is our first episode, I thought it'd be nice for us to just kind of talk a little bit about our backgrounds, how we got into video games and games journalism, and where we've worked before. So, why don't you start it off, Tristan?
Well, I haven't really done much, but I really only got invested into the games journalism space mostly through a place called CGR Undertow Place, a channel on YouTube, which we've both contributed to. I'm currently still doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it was mostly Derek's reviews that got me like, oh, this is a thing. And then I started to go to like IGN, um, various sites, GameSpot, whatever. And then that kind of got me into the whole games journalism space. And then I realized this was a thing that people could do for money. And I was kind of blown away by that. So I went for a while just with that in mind. And then I started doing videos for CJ Undertow. And then I kind of decided this is what I want to do. So, I'm currently working towards going to college for journalism in that space, but I don't really have much of a background. I'm pretty young, so
Yeah,
not much going on.
there's a 2 year age gap between us, I believe. Are you
Mhm.
17 or are you still 16?
16. I'm
Okay.
going to be a senior in high school, but I'm 16, which is a weird thing because I started school a year early in
Okay.
California.
Okay. Now I am not as la-di-da as you, I guess. I started on time. I'm 19. I'm gonna be a sophomore. Um, but yeah, my story, I guess, is kind of similar to yours. The first time I remember really thinking about games journalism was when G4 was still in its kind of heyday. Um, Back then, we had a lot of different forms of gaming stuff on TV, especially on that channel, but also to a degree on Spike and various other places. And I just loved Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb's chemistry. I loved how that self-depreciating humor is. I actually wrote a paper on this or a speech on this for college. Um, but I didn't really think of it as a career for me. It was just kind of something entertaining until, like you said, when CGR kind of came around. I knew about them, but I didn't realize that I actually lived 15 minutes away from where they were located,
Yeah.
and that my father had done work for them, and I started doing that. I was there for, let me think, almost almost 2 years. I started off doing text reviews, then I moved on to doing gameplay walkthroughs before that channel closed, and then I was doing stuff on Undertow for about a year and a half. Um, and after that, I since moved on. I'm now the gaming editor for Tech Heads at Ohio University, and I'm a features writer and editor for InvisibleGamer.net, which is a great channel. You can check it out. There's some awesome guys to support on there. Michael Burns, who just moved to New York, has done some freelance work for IGN. Brian Bell does work for Sony Rumors as well, and he's an awesome guy. You'll be working with him if you ever want to write for that site.
Hmm.
Um, and lots of other people who work for there. But basically, kind of all that combined was what got me really interested in it. And when I left CGR, because that'd been the only kind of site I worked for, I wanted to do something different. And I still have my own YouTube channel, although it's been very inactive, called Gaming Angel Gabriel. Um, and you can see every once in a while I'll post a video where I talk about a very specific topic, and I started doing a podcast there that has since ceased. Um, but yeah, I kind of spread my wings and discovered that kind of the audio and written space is where I tend to be most comfortable. I've been on camera, and I don't necessarily mind being on camera, but I prefer writing and audio. I guess everyone has their preference.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because, games journalism now isn't just the writing, too, though.
Right.
There's the whole being on camera for a news story bit or, this kind of thing, but with video where you're just, having a conversation and it's being filmed. So there's also that element to games journalism that kind of, oh, God, that kind of, you know, broadens the horizons of it.
Absolutely. And it's I mean, I guess it's not such a big deal because obviously I have been on camera and I've gotten much more comfortable with it, but um, that's something that I think a lot of people don't know is that you need to be kind of good at all of those things, at least to a degree.
Hmm.
And I'm best when I'm arguing with someone, which is why some of the podcasts I do at Ohio University are so entertaining. But anyway, of course, to get into games journalism, you first have to get into games.
Yeah.
Now, Tristan, how did you get interested in video games?
Oh God. Well, I was so young, probably about 3 years old. I lived in Vallejo, California at the time, which was not a good neighborhood. But I would always go to this pizza place, and they had a Pac-Man machine there, like the tabletop Pac-Man. And
Hmm.
I went nuts for that, and that was really my first experience for games. And then my dad was, played games as well. My mom got him a Super Nintendo for his birthday one year, and so he had that, and I played that, and I got a PS2 when I was 5. So it was really mostly my dad that really got me into the other stuff of it, like the actual consoles of things, because I thought, oh, these are just games that I'll find at places.
Yep.
Um, and then he got me into that, and then I took it to a whole other level beyond that as I got older. So that was really where it kind of started for me.
Now, are you it's interesting that you say that. Are you an only child, by the way?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have one older brother, and although he's really not interested in video games that much, he's kind of what got me into it, though. I kind of I guess we had a Super Nintendo. That was our first system, and Super Mario World, I think, is my first memory hearing that.
Yeah. Me too.
Uh, and Mario Kart and those sorts of games. But my parents really, my mom especially, never played games. My dad played a little bit in college. Like he liked Tron. He always says was his favorite game um, at the arcade. But yeah, my brother kind of got me into it. When the N64, when we got that, I was how old would I have been? Like 3 years old. Yeah, because we were still in Columbus at the time, so I would have been like three. And Star Fox and Mario for that. When I really, really got into it, I'd say though was in 2002, because that's when we got our Xbox and we got Halo. Because I first played it down the street, and I fell in love with that. Um, and kind of from then on, it was mostly me in the house. I was the only one who was really interested in playing games. Um, and I got really into Ocarina of Time. I remember my friend and I. The first memory I can remember of me and someone else really, really like trying to one up each other in a game was um, A Link to the Past, Four Swords on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
My friend Ian and I were playing that constantly, and I don't know if we ever beat it. I know he was closer than I was for a while, but I think like years later I tried to catch up. But yeah, that's what really got me into games. I guess Halo kind of credits why I like Xbox so much, but it's not really the Xbox platform I like so much. It's just I like Halo a lot, and I like some of the other exclusives they have. But I think that's kind of a good segue though to what we're talking about with the whole thinking concept.
Yeah.
Uh, just because I like Xbox, you'll notice in that opening, I put a Wii U gamepad and a PS4 console. I like everything. If it has good games, I'm willing to give it a try.
Same for me.
And I think that's it's something that if people were to sit down and even some of the people who type this stuff, if they were to sit down and just think about it for a little bit, I don't think many of them would disagree with that. Um, it's this preconceived notion that one console has to succeed and it has to crush the other one. And while I do think there will be a failure in this space this generation, and it's not one of the big three necessarily, I think it's already been shown that the Ouya is going to be the big failure. I don't think necessarily there has to be one or the other. I think while the PS4 is definitely the gamers' console is how they're putting it. The Xbox One, in addition to having a lot of good exclusives, is going to be the console for people to do everything on. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're de-emphasizing gaming so much as they are emphasizing a lot of other stuff as well. And I'm not particularly worried about that.
And I'm the same way. I'm not worried at all about the Wii U, even though people are expressing total distaste for it or saying that it's going down and all that stuff. But people forget after the Wii, before the Wii, I should say, that Nintendo wasn't dominating. Like Wii kind of was
Right.
this fluke in a couple of year span. Well, I guess just 64 and GameCube were
Yeah.
kind of niche, but it
And
was
so,
that
yeah, I mean
Wii
N64
that
had a
brought it
bigger
up.
market, but yeah.
Yeah, and it just kind of like people forget that that was the Wii U is kind of what Nintendo was before. I mean, numbers aside, it was kind of that lesser secondary console,
Hmm.
even though it had great games.
Yeah. I guess the reason that I think the reason why I'm particularly worried is just that there's not that huge game that's going to be, even Skyward Sword didn't really push sales of the Wii that much when that game came out. It was last generation, besides Wii Sports, obviously, that came with the system, it was New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And New Super Mario Bros. U just didn't have that same effect to really push sales of the Wii U long term. It did short term. Like, it had a good launch initially, but after that, it
Hmm.
petered off. And looking
Well, I
at.
think they're coming with that game. Even though I'm not going to argue that they should have had that game at launch. I think they're coming with Smash Bros. People say, like,
Oh, yeah, Smash
everyone.
Bros. Definitely has a chance, but I don't think that's coming till late next
No, that's what
year.
I mean. Like, they
Yeah.
have those games, but they didn't have it at the beginning,
Yeah, and that's just the
which is
thing.
a
Like,
problem.
they have to. Nintendo's always been really bad about like having stuff spread out over a good period of time.
Hmm.
I think 2014 is going to be a ridiculous year for them. There's so many big name games I think that are going to be coming out then. Um, Mario Kart, Smash. You said I think Zelda's coming at the end of next year. I'm almost sure of that. Um, what else is coming next year?
Stuff we don't even know about,
A few,
probably.
no, yeah, and a few other ones I'm not thinking of. But next year, I was saying, there's a lot of good games coming also for the 3D. Oh, I'm sure Fire Emblem Cross Shin Megami Tensei. I think that's a Wii U game. That's probably coming next year.
Mm.
Speaking of which, I heard rumors that Nintendo's going to buy Atlas, but that's for another day. Uh, but anyway, yeah, it's just a matter of them spreading out their content in kind of a bad way. And I think the end of 2013 is going to be good for Wii U owners, maybe not for Nintendo, because I'm not sure any of these, like you said, I'm not sure these are going to push sales that much. I think Mario probably will, but again, we've looked at the sales numbers in the past for the 3D Marios to the 2D Marios on console and the 2Ds, while not as critically acclaimed, always do better.
Hmm.
Um, but I think Donkey Kong's going to be awesome. I'm obviously going to get Mario, and Pikmin's coming out in just a few weeks. I've been waiting a long time for that. But yeah, I'm not really worried about that. But anyway, the point basically is that it just because one side wins doesn't mean that another side has to lose, and it's not even winning so much. It's just doing well, what have you. If you look at this generation, it's a perfect example of that. The Nintendo Wii, like it has like a 30 million console sold lead on the other two this generation, while the PS3 and the 360, for all intents and purposes, are neck and neck, and they're both considered massive successes. Now, the 360 right off the bat was because for a long time it was destroying the PS3, but the PS3, even though everyone was making fun of it, it's really picked up steam to the point where if someone were to ask me, maybe not this late in the console generation, but if someone were to ask me a year or so ago which console should I get, I'd probably tell them get the PS3 because it
Hmm.
has more exclusives. Um, but yeah, and that doesn't mean that I dislike the other system. It just means I'm
It's
able
the
to
games.
use my brain. Yeah, it's just whatever you want. And obviously, cash is a concern. I'm not gonna lie, I'm working because of that.
Yeah.
but but yeah, I think it, it's really important before you type, and it's really easy to forget this. Just think for a second. If you
Yeah.
go on N4G now, I saw some comment. I don't even remember what it was, but it was just like a numbers, like a factual comment, and it had so many downvotes compared to upvotes. And I'm like, are you people even thinking before you hit that button
Mm.
what this person's saying? He's not even really expressing an opinion. He's just saying facts. Take it or leave it.
Well, I kind of expect that kind of stuff in comments, but to see full blown articles like on well established sites kind of putting down one console over another or something, I'm
Hmm.
like, what is happening here? I thought the whole point was to kind of keep it even and
Yeah,
consider these things, and that's kind of being lost this time. And the console war is ridiculous in my opinion. So
yeah, and I don't think that there's any problem inherently with getting up on a soapbox and speaking, but you just
Oh
need to
no,
know what
definitely
you're
not.
saying. Like, I
Hmm.
disagree with a lot of the stuff Jim Sterling says, but I agree with a lot of it too. But he's obviously thought through what he's saying beforehand, um, and I think that's the key. This doesn't just go for journalists. Obviously, we want everyone. We want to make this environment not only more accepting of newcomers and that sort of thing, but I don't want to say less cynical because there is a time and place for cynicism, but just more thoughtful.
Yeah.
And because of that, I over this, I think I'm gonna have. I think I tend to think it's the best game I've ever played, and I have played The Last of Us as well, and a lot of people have been wadding that. But this is gonna be over some footage of Bioshock Infinite from about midway through the game, I think. Just because I think that's a perfect example for this. After I sat down from that game, I stared at a wall for like an hour, just dumb, because that game just blew my mind. And after that, I was on wikis for hours on end researching it, and that's the type um, of game that I love. And I love other games too. I think there's also sort of this black and white between you have to either like a game like Heavy Rain or
Hmm.
uh, or The Last of Us or something like that or XCOM, or you like just Call of Duty
Games
and Madden
first, like,
football.
yeah,
Yeah,
that come with just,
but
game mechanics and not really story being there.
what about both? I know there's
Yeah.
certain times where I'll look at a copy of Halo and I'll say, no, I don't want to play that right now. But then there's another time where I'm like, yeah, I want to get invested in that universe again. And obviously, you don't have to like everything. No one should like everything. I don't really like most racing sims. I don't really like
Hmm.
real-time strategy that much, and I don't really like fighting games, for instance. But I know that they have a place, and I know that there are people that like them, and they're not at fault for liking them.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the thing. I think people are too quick to judge, too quick to kind of try to find the intent of whoever they're looking at, and a lot of times it might not be accurate. So yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna try to keep these fairly concise and fairly short. I thought this was a
Hmm.
good introduction.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so everyone, stay tuned. We'll try to get some more content to you soon. All right, see you guys later.
See ya.